Welcome back to my channel, guys. I have yet another exciting interview to share with you, this one being with famous adult star Cliff Jensen. Out of all of the adult stars that I've interviewed so far, Cliff is actually the first to have admitted that he fell into the adult space basically out of survival mode. He had bills to pay, he had an opportunity, jumped, or rather dove headfirst into it, to use his own words, and out of that, a whole career developed. I was particularly riveted by Cliff's story of how his first adult film totally affected his personal life, how it actually kind of traumatized him and what was going on in his life at that time. It's a really fascinating story of a person kind of being exposed and outed for the world. I think a lot of us as LGBT people know what it's like to be outed, but it's a different thing when you're outed on such a global level. Curious what you guys think. Once you've watched the entire interview, let me know in the comments your thoughts. Thank you for doing this, first off.
Of course.
Um,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, you're the first person that I'm interviewing who also does straight porn. So I don't want to label
Yes.
you, but typically the way that I
Yeah.
start these conversations is asking about the coming out story and how you kind of
Right.
discovered your sexuality. So again, I don't want to label you. I'm assuming you're bisexual, but I want to hear from you what that journey has been like.
My childhood, I was always ridiculed and made fun of for being gay, called like maricon and faggot and like different things growing up. So for me, I repressed a lot of myself. I started realizing that sexuality is a spectrum and there's no one's completely straight. I am in fact bisexual, but there's certain things I like and there's certain things I don't like.
I agree with you on the spectrum front. And it's funny because I grew up, I think, like a lot of people thinking it is black and white. Porn, and for me, apps in particular, like dating apps, hookup apps, have shown me just how much of a spectrum it is.
And see, and that's what causes, this divide in our society. And that's what caused the stigma and the judgment, I think. It's just this cut and dry mentality that you're this, you're this. Or if you've ever sucked a dick, you're a faggot. And it's like, oh, well, thank you. That's rude. Fucking, so I deal with this stuff all the time. On my latest podcast I went on, Inside OnlyFans, we were talking about this, and in the comment section there were tons of dudes attacking me for being gay and mocking me for sucking a dick and shit. And it's like, bro, this is my sexuality, this is my career. Like, what
Well,
the
and
fuck?
also
Like,
it's an OnlyFans podcast. I would think that people are more open-minded about sexuality on an OnlyFans podcast.
one would think, right?
So you mentioned that growing up you got called a faggot and other stuff. I'm curious, was that you were openly gay? Is that people assumed you were
No,
gay?
I
Or was it
started.
just like guys calling each other faggot and you internalized it knowing maybe you were actually into
No,
guys?
it was more like of my stepmother and like in other. It was like
Oh,
close to home. When I was growing up, my mom got custody of at a young age, and I would see my dad like once or twice a year. So I started to take after my mother and pick up feminine aspects and stuff. Like I went through a phase where I walked on my toes for like 2 or 3 years. I didn't go heel to toe. I literally walked on my toes like a ballerina,
huh.
and people were making fun of me and calling me, like medicone, faggot, this and that. But I had feminine responses and whatever traits that I was
Huh.
developing and picking up from my mom. So that all started at a young age. When I went through puberty, I moved in with my dad and I picked up, the man side of things from him, and that stuff kind of
Hmm.
changed. But it was that early on calling out of little mannerisms and stuff that I had that caused me to be so withdrawn and closed off to the idea of it.
Very interesting. By the way, out of the four guys that I've interviewed, I would say that you're probably the most masculine. So
No, well, I
again,
appreciate that.
it shows you like that none of this is fixed
The
in
development of a
place.
person.
Yeah, it's
Right.
all yeah, and maybe tomorrow if you I don't know, you move to some village that was only women, like maybe you'd be having sex with all of them, but you'd become more effeminate. Like,
No, totally. You are the company you keep. And my stepfather used to tell me a fallacy, garbage in, garbage out. Like if you listen to a lot of crap, you're gonna start
mm,
saying crap. If you have people talking bad in your ear, you're gonna start speaking poorly. It's just, it's how we are. We're made to adapt and to survive.
so you basically were already internalizing it, but then realize in fact, like, okay, I am also attracted to guys. And can you
Hmm.
take me through how you actually then got into adult work? How that evolution happened?
So, I was in a bad way. My parents dropped me off at a homeless shelter when I was 17, and I was kind of on my own. And in that process, I got in some trouble with the law, which then later I had to go back and handle in Florida. But before I went and handled it, when I was going through the beginning processes of that, being on my own and not having any support, one day my probation officer said, "Hey, you're behind. You're in arrears. 1,500, whatever, $2,000." My supervisor says if you can't come up with this money by the week where you check in, I have to violate you. And I was panicking. I'm a college student with two part-time jobs. I literally had like 5 ramen noodles to last me 7 days. And I knew I had to break a ramen noodle pack in half to make it fucking through the weekend. And it was brutal. And I was brainstorming, like, how the fuck do I come up with this money? I can't sell my car. I wouldn't be able to get to work. I'm like, what do I do? And I remembered an offer I got years ago from Fab Scott Entertainment to do porn. And I called him up and I was like, "Hey, I haven't talked to you in a couple of years, but I think I'm ready." And he said, "Well, if you could get transportation down to Fort Lauderdale, I'll give you a shoot, but I'm not going to pay for your transpo for you not to show up." So I got a ride. I went down there, I did a shoot, and then it blew up. Everyone was like, "Who the fuck is this kid?" So I found independence and I found the ability to just take care of myself and to keep myself free and to be my own man through porn. And I just dove into it. But at the time, I was in a relationship with this girl who I was very close to. And we were on a break when I did my first porn movie. And we got back together shortly after that. And I was so curious about this movie. I Googled the name, Cliff Jensen, XXX, blah, blah. I was trying to find this because it was my first full on gay experience, sex and all of this, plus my first exhibition moment where I'm in a room full of other people watching me fuck. And it was just so many factors going on. And I really wanted to see what it was. Like, how did I put myself out there? What do I look like? And I looked at it all and I deleted the fucking files. She had a keylogger on her fucking laptop, bro.
Wow.
She keylogged it and it saved every thumbnail, every fucking shot from the video. And I was like,
Huh.
"Babe, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah." And she literally treated me like I was a leopard. Like I had AIDS and I was the most contagious person in the fucking universe. She hysterically like kicked herself away from me in the corner of her closet, screaming and crying. The most dramatic thing I think I've ever seen in my life. I literally had to grab my stuff and run out of her house because she was Irish. Her mom and grandma were in the other room, probably thinking I was murdering her. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. And I ran away. But she printed out those photos and hung them all over the college campus, everywhere in our town in Port St. Lucie, Florida. And I was like the fawn at this school. I was on steroids. I was in shape. I was the fucking loudest, baddest dude around. I was hanging out with everyone. I had parties at my house 5, 6 days a week where every college, everybody came to my place. It was me. I had the fraternity. And then next thing you know, from being the cool guy who was bagging every girl he wanted, which every dude was trying to be cool with, to being he's a faggot. You want to hang out with him? And being in the South,
Wow.
these girls wanting to fit in went with the ignorant mentality. And I had to beat up all of these fucking dudes in like a month and a half time that were cool with me. They were at my house using my stuff, acting like friends, who then were behind my back, like, "Oh, you're going to go out with him? He's a faggot. Look at him sucking dick." And then I would go punch
Wow.
him and get on top of him and be like, "You just got your ass kicked by a faggot. How does it feel?" And give them a kiss on the cheek in front of all their friends and fucking turn people out. So that was my college experience. And
Wow.
that was me, my outing, if you will, because, I tried to hide the porn star shit for a little while, but then when she did that, she also attached my porn name to my real name and an alias under the legal system. So it shows one of my aliases when I'm in prison is Cliff Jensen, which is not the best thing, but I was able to survive with it.
It's ironic because what she did to me, and I think I would like to think I would
Liberated me in the long run.
in the long, yeah, in the long run, but in the short term, I feel like what she did is so much worse in every way morally than
Yeah.
anything
Oh, yeah.
you did. And
Oh,
that's the
no, it
irony
was.
of
And the
this
fact that we were on
hypocrisy.
a break and everything, she was homophobic because the person in her family she aspired to be like and looked up to, like the perfect family. The husband was, perfect in school, great grades, graduated college, beautiful big house, had the toys, gorgeous wife, gorgeous family. The son is prom king, daughter's prom queen, a year behind them, both, varsity, perfect family. The husband had a best friend that they always did fishing trips, hunting trips, whatever, boating trips, and all this shit with. Right when the last kid turned 18, he ran away with his best friend, left the family, married him. So she became utterly homophobic with the fear that she could be dating the perfect guy, and at any minute he's going to run away with his buddy.
Oh, he
So
ran off with
that's
a
why she,
guy.
Yeah. Her
Oh
uncle, the
yeah.
dream person, the family she wanted, aspired to have. This moment the old youngest son turned 18, he married his friend and ran off, and fucking he did his father duty. And then when that was done, he was like,
Yeah.
"This is what I want." So that traumatized her apparently, and made her fucking feel like printing my shit out was the right move. But fuck her. It
So
helped me because now I introduce myself. I'm like, "Hi, I'm Cliff. I'm a porn star."
and it's interesting because how you started in adult entertainment really was a survival mode thing you mentioned, right? Like you were having to pay this bill, and you mentioned survival instincts before, like that we
Mm-hmm.
adapt purely out of survival.
Found out I was good at it, and it was fun. So then I'm just like,
Yeah.
"Oh well, this is going to be my new thing."
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Like I think with some of the other guys that I've talked to, we've discussed this fantasy that a lot of people have of doing porn once. And my whole mindset is always like, if you're gonna do it, you should probably go all
You
in.
better do it. Yeah, because you're going to deal with the negative repercussions forever. You might as well have some of the positive benefits that come along with it. You can't just fuck yourself and not fucking reap anything. I've written several scripts this past 6 months, and I'll be bringing them to market by the end of the year. So I'm going to be known as more than just a porn star. I'm going to be a writer, director, and producer in porn. And I work in production on my own as a co-producer, and I work my way up from PA to co-producer through almost every department but wardrobe and makeup, because it's just not my forte. But I've done everything on set and I love it so much. But before I retire, I'm putting some energy into making some really high quality, kinky, well written scripts that will be film festival quality in the beginning and then nasty at the end.
Got it. Well, it makes total sense, this transition from being on camera to behind the camera, because I imagine new stars or new
Mm-hmm.
performers want to feel as safe as possible, right? So if the people behind the
Oh, yeah.
camera actually know exactly what the experience is like, that kind of empathy is
It
ideal.
definitely helps people feel more comfortable when you have somebody on set that has endured what you're going to have to go through.
I'm curious how straight porn compares and differs from gay porn. You just
Well,
mentioned, yeah, go for it. You tell me.
straight porn is super easy for the factor that it is not about me, right? Like when I show up for a straight porn shoot, I literally stand by until the girl's done with all this makeup and hair and everything. And then she gets her pretty girls and her pinup shots and all of this other photos of just her. And then they're like, Cliff, come in. And I do one or two photos because it's not about me, it's all about them. And then we start the scene, and 90% of the scene, 60% of my body is cut out of frame. It's not about me. I can relax more and not worry about having to fucking stretch my back so far back or like do this or that because they're focused on her. I get paid a lot less. It's not about me at all, but it's more relaxing. You know what I'm saying? When I
Yeah.
go to a gay shoot, it's all about me. I have to do all these extra still photos, all these extra things, all stages of undress and all of this. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy that, but it's a more tedious day. There's more to be required of me on the gay shoot days. And bi shoots and trans shoots are a mix between the both, where bi shoots are easier because you have another male partner, mostly if it's a boy girl, to share the workload with you. So like if you're tired or you need a moment, you could just tag and switch off, right? And just go into oral and let them fucking fuck, and tag team and switch off again. So any sort of three-way situation is a lot easier to keep the energy going and to keep the shoot flowing if you know how to rearrange yourself on frame. But when it's just you and another person, it's got to be all about somebody, and it's just
Hmm.
wherever the camera's focused, wherever that content's selling.
Do you find that, does it ever come up that you also do gay porn? Like, is there any internal stigma, or is it a pretty open,
When I got into
inclusive
this
environment?
business, the stigma was rampant. Rampant. We're like, oh, you're a gay porn star, you go to AIDS, you're dirty. I can't work with you. I can't associate with you. I won't even
Really?
tweet you back. But yeah, it was horrible. It deeply hurt me for years. I felt alienated. I felt disrespected. I'm like, why can't you judge me on the content of my character? Like, why do you have to fucking judge me on the genre in which I work? Like, can't we fucking be better than this? Like, it was painful to be segregated and separated and to be assumed to be dirty just
Yeah.
because I do gay porn or I'm bisexual. And it aggravated me for years. But now the whole all inclusive trans movement is happening where the avians and everyone has brought the trans community in completely. And now all the people in the straight business are recognizing the trans girls as something.
Mm.
At first, there was still the big stigma against gays, but we started bringing to everyone's attention. Well, it's funny. You have a problem with us. because we'll all get tested on Monday. I'll have a shoot with one of the trans girls on Tuesday. They'll take Wednesday off, and then they'll have a straight shoot on Thursday. But the straight people won't shoot with me on Thursday. They'll just shoot with the person I fucked 2 days before. So it's like,
Totally.
okay, if I'm dirty, there's also an
Yeah.
incubation period and everything. You're going to be dirty. So why can't you work with me? And I started bringing this to people's attention, and so did others. And the mentality is slowly fading, but we still deal with it. But what needs to be done is we need to address each and every model. It doesn't matter if gay, straight, black, white, fat, skinny, tall, short. It doesn't matter what the fuck you are, where you place yourself, or what your fetish is. We need to treat everyone on an individual basis. Does this model go and hook up with people in the club after their, test? Do they see clients? Are they safe? Do they screen people when you go shoot content with them? Do they ask you to see your test, or do they just take your word for it and fuck you? And if that's the case, they're probably doing that to other people. So there's room for error, and you need to factor that in and weigh out the options of shooting with those people. But you can't blindly judge everybody in a group. And that's prejudice. That's fucked up. You can't literally take an entire group of people and fucking say you're all dirty. It's a horrible thing to do. It's ignorant too. If you think about it, it's absolutely ignorant.
I want to ask you about the OnlyFans era, that we're now in.
Okay.
There's obvious changes about it, right? You get to own your content, way more independence. But is there anything else you want to elaborate on how that has changed the industry, how it's changed your experience in the industry?
Before I had to go to prison to deal with my stuff, I proposed an idea called Cliffhanger, which was an OnlyFans idea to my agency and stuff. And they all laughed at it because they knew it was going to be a conflict of interest because they were invested in the actual physical production companies and the brick and mortars and stuff. And they knew better. I go to prison, I come out and I hear about OnlyFans. Now, if you can't beat them, join them. I've made good money. And because of OnlyFans, I never needed any of the government assistance or anything through COVID. I never had to deal with any of that. I literally was able to isolate myself, stay home, be with the family, and do my stuff online and live and be okay. I wasn't making money like some of the people I knew were making during this time, but I was fucking surviving, and I'm proud of that. But OnlyFans has been a great tool. I feel like they could do more for the models and put more money back into the website. But when it comes down to it, like, I make a living off of it. Many other models do. And that independence has enabled us to be able to turn down shoots we don't want to take, people we don't want to work with, things that we used to need to take because we had bills, we had obligations. We couldn't turn down that money. Now we have the option. And that's a beautiful thing because that helps resolve depression and self-worth issues and everything else. But when it comes down to it, before OnlyFans and everything else, unless you invested back in your brand and you built a website and you shot your own shit and bought people out of their rights and you owned it, when you retired from porn, it was a horrible fall from grace. You go from everyone giving you attention to wanting to give you something, to wanting to bail you out, to fucking life being easy, to minimum wage, no one giving a fuck about you, you being washed up and not attractive or whatever it may be, where you're not getting that same validation that you once were. So people can't acclimate to this plunge. Some do, and they find a way and they start a business or they do something and they go to school and they bounce back, but a lot can't take the fall from grace. And that's where drugs come in, because they want to numb and forget and justify. And then that's where the suicide comes in, because when you sign 100% of your rights over and you retire 5 or 10 years later and you still see companies re-editing and re-releasing that old footage as new shit and still making money off of you when you're hungry, it's very hard for people to accept that. And the overwhelming sense of worthlessness comes into play then, because it's like everything I gave, I sacrificed, I gave myself physically, emotionally, my energy, I was vulnerable, I gave everything naked, for fuck's sake. This is the most intimate thing. And I have nothing to show for it, and now nobody wants to fuck me. I see how it breaks people and hurts people. And if these companies were to do something as simple as profit participation on the back end, meaning the company makes their money back 5 times over in a couple of years, and a new company surfaces. And a lot of times these new companies reach out to existing companies to buy the rights to some of their content that builds traffic, names that people want to see that are Googling. So the new company can profit off of those, porn stars and everything else, that demand. So when that company that's made all their money back times 5 or 10 or even more sells the rights to your video 5 years later, you should get a piece of that secondhand sell. That would give something back to the models, and that would make them not feel so worthless. And that's something very easily to do if you weren't greedy as fuck. But that doesn't happen. And I know this happens because I was rolling a joint one night late you know, fucking just got home. It's like 3 in the morning. TV's on in the background, not paying attention to it, and the commercial comes on. Call now and talk to these hot young men. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, funny. And I look up, laughing, and it's me. I'm on the fucking TV. And yeah, that was my reaction. It was like, what the fuck? Right? Call my agent. He wakes up, fucking, what was looking for? I'm like, dude, why the fuck? Blah, blah, blah. He's like, I'll take care of it in the morning. He calls me back and he's like, yeah, that company went out of business. They sold the rights to the content. Another company came in and bought all of it and they sold it off to different people. And this company bought your photos to use for their advertisement. And I'm like, how do we get rid of it? And he goes, well, you have to buy the rights from them. My 20s, I was in denial, man. I was like, yeah, I'm a porn star, but I had my legal troubles going on. I was dealing with the abandonment from my family and the warrants and just the other shit that was looming over my head. And I didn't take porn seriously because I honestly I wasn't proud of the fact that I was a porn star then. I was more ashamed of all my circumstances and everything and how my family was mad at me for fucking being in the situation I put myself in and everything else. And now in my 30s, I'm like, this is my career. And not only is it my career, I have tenure in this shit. I need to take this shit seriously. And the moment I started to, everything got better for me. The moment I incorporated myself and started treating myself like a corporation, like a business, like an individual who is selling his services to somebody and contracting as well. Right. I started to have more self-worth, more choices, more everything. Once I put my health first in my 30s. You know, my 20s was partying and just reckless behavior and staying up or going out or just not going home, you know, when I should have just went home and gone to sleep, you know, and beauty sleep. They call it that for a fucking reason. But no, I wanted to fucking drag my ass through the mud. And now there's nothing I love more than to fucking have a nice hot cup of tea and fall asleep reading something. I'm proud of myself. I've come a long way. I've been through a lot. I've been able to keep a level head and still be a loving person and not a bitter person. Which I'm grateful for because going to prison, it was very difficult to be a nice guy and to not want to take advantage of people, but to have money and to not be involved in a gang made me a target, you know, and I constantly had to show people that I'm not weak, but it was annoying. I do have exciting news because I've signed a licensing agreement with a Chinese company called Iron Tech Doll. And they are making life-size companion dolls that are abdominally correct. Dick, ass, mouth, everything. So you can actually buy me in a life-size sex doll and have your way with me. And that will be coming to market in October.
I have to look into this and see if it's a publicly traded company. I might want to buy some.
Iron Tech doll. Listen, they're legit.
Like,
yeah.
This is
so
where
the
we are
first
with
doll is literally
technology.
going to be as close to me as possible.
Sounds good. All right. I'll talk to you soon then.
Get my smoke break now.
Yeah, your smoke break.
Right,
Have fun.
buddy.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.